multi-billion-dollar empire, and how she's living right now is insane. Tiana Wallace owns a Brooklyn house worth $1.5 million, a clothing line she started out of a college dorm, a museum she built inside her own storefront, and this fall, she opens a steakhouse in Manhattan named after her father. She was 3 years old when he was shot dead in Los Angeles. Nobody was ever arrested for it, and when Christopher Wallace died in 1997, he left his daughter $10 million. So how did she end up with 200? To answer that, we gotta go back to Brooklyn, because the girl who owns all of it today barely knew the man who made it. Tiana Dream Wallace was born in Brooklyn in 1993 to Christopher Wallace and his high school girlfriend, Jan Jackson.
Sometimes you gotta live in the shadow of your famous parents.
Yeah.
And do you ever feel like that?
It comes with the name. I feel like that's one of those things where it's like, your dad is Biggie, you can't really knock that.
Her parents separated before her first birthday. She was raised by her mother in the same borough her father was about to make famous. And a year later, she was on camera. In the Juicy video, there's a little girl. That's her. She's the daughter he was rapping about when he talked about providing. The reason the money mattered in the first place. She was 3 years old when he was killed. That matters here, because it means Tiana Wallace has no adult memory of her father and no memory at all of him having money. Everything that carries his name today, the catalog, the licensing, the $200 million valuation, was built by other people while she was in elementary school. She said in interviews that she learned who her father was the same way the rest of us did, from the records, from her mother, from Lil Cease, who she still goes to with questions about what her dad was actually like.
What memories, if any, do you have of your father?
I don't personally have any memories, but oh my gosh, if I can count the many times that my mom's telling me stuff, Faith's telling me stuff, C's is telling me stuff.
By the time she got to Penn State, she was studying business and working the campus cafeteria for extra money.
What do you do? What do you do?
I work at the school caf.
Cafeteria?
So it's like work studies, kind of.
Yes.
School cafeteria.
The daughter of one of the most valuable estates in rap, wiping down tables in a college dining hall. That's the part that gets left out of every version of this story. And on that Sunday morning in March, everything her father built stopped growing. He was in Los Angeles for the Soul Train Awards, and he'd spent that Saturday night at an after-party at the Peterson Automotive Museum on Wilshire. Just after midnight, he left. He was in the front passenger seat of a GMC Suburban. The truck stopped at a red light on Wilshire and Fairfax. A dark sedan pulled up on the passenger side. The driver rolled down his window and opened fire. Christopher Wallace was pronounced dead at Cedars-Sinai Medical Center. He was 24 years old.
Communities are mourning the death of the rapper known as Notorious B.I.G.
Nobody has ever been arrested for it. Almost 30 years, no charges, no conviction, no answer. He was cremated at Fresh Pond Crematory in Queens, and his ashes were split among his family. 16 days later, Life After Death came out. Now here's the part that shaped the next 3 decades, and it has nothing to do with the shooting. Biggie died without a will. 24 years old, a double album already at the pressing plant, a wife, 2 small children, and not one document saying what should happen to any of it. So the state stepped in and decided for him. That's what intestate means. No will, so the law fills in the blanks on your behalf. Under New York rules, a spouse and children divide the estate between them. And in Biggie's case, what's been reported for years is 50% to his widow, Faith Evans, 25% to Tiana, and 25% to his son, CJ. Worth being straight about that split, though. It shows up in almost every article written about this family, but you can't pull it from a public court record. It's what's commonly reported. Take it as that and nothing more. Because the percentages turned out to be the easy part anyway. The hard part was that the thing everybody assumed Biggie owned, his own music, he only owned half of.
Well, Big had to listen to Puff. You know, he had to listen to Puff because Puff owned his publishing and his marketing.
When Biggie signed his deal in the early 90s, he signed what almost every young rapper in that era signed, a standard publishing agreement. And standard, back then, meant the label took half. Sean Combs and Bad Boy held a 50% interest in Biggie's songwriting. That wasn't theft, and it wasn't a scandal. It was the going rate for a kid from Bed-Stuy with no leverage and no lawyer telling him to push back. Every artist his age was signing the same paper, but it meant something specific when he died. His family didn't inherit his catalog. They inherited half of it. So Valletta Wallace went to work. She was a Jamaican immigrant who'd raised him alone in Brooklyn on a preschool teacher's salary. She'd called his music noise. She had no background in publishing, no experience with licensing, no reason on earth to know what a master recording was worth. And she spent the next 23 years learning it. She brought in Mark Pitts and Wayne Barrow, two former Bad Boy executives, to run it with her. And here's what made the argument work. The estate was doing most of the labor. The estate was the one bringing deals to the table, chasing the licensing, keeping his name in circulation while Bad Boy collected on paper. So she went back to Combs and made him move.
As far as publishing and Puffy and myself, that was resolved.
In the early 2000s, he raised the estate's stake from 50% to 85%. In 2020, she bought the last 15%. And in 2023, the estate went back again and expanded its rights in the actual recordings through Bad Boy and Warner Music Group. 23 years to get all the way back to owning her own son. Sit with the numbers on that. Roughly $10 million when he died. Roughly $160 million by the time she was finished. So when you hear $200 million attached to Biggie's name, understand what that figure actually is. That's not money he left behind. That's money a woman in her 50s built, one negotiation at a time, buying her dead child's songs back off the label piece by piece. But the catalog wasn't the only thing Valletta went after, because she believed the men who killed her son were wearing badges. In 2002, Valletta Wallace and Faith Evans sued the city of Los Angeles, claiming LAPD officers were involved in Biggie's murder and the department covered it up. Every man named denied it. So did the city. The number on the filing was $500 million, 2.5 times what the entire estate would be worth 23 years later. The trial started June 21, 2005. It lasted 3 days. An anonymous tip led the family's lawyers to a trove of LAPD documents the city had never turned over, and Judge Florence Marie Cooper declared a mistrial.
And they just kept hitting roadblock after roadblock after roadblock. Every one of their witnesses were getting discredited, and the case just kept falling apart.
8 years, a $500 million claim, and the family walked away with nothing but a sanctions order. Valletta died without ever getting an answer. That's what Tiana grew up inside. Not the money, the waiting. 200 miles east, in Brooklyn, Valletta's granddaughter was watching all of it and getting ready to do something with her share that nobody in the family expected. In 2013, Tiana was still at Penn State, still working that cafeteria job, and she launched a clothing line called Notorious with 2 S's.
And I was always into fashion, so by the time I got to my sophomore year in college, I was like, I want to start a clothing line, and I did it.
Her brother CJ explained the reason for that publicly. It was her mark, her own individuality, tied to her father without being a copy of him. She was using the name she'd been given and putting her own signature on it. Notorious lived online at first. Photo shoots she set up with her college roommates. Orders she filled herself. Then the estate money started meaning something, and she put it into brick and mortar. December 2nd, 2017. She opened her first store at 512 Atlantic Avenue in Brooklyn, her father's borough, blocks from where he grew up.
You mentioned your store. I'm so happy for you. Congratulations.
Thank you.
This is the hometown of Biggie.
It is.
So it's only right that she opens up Biggie. It's called Notorious.
Yes.
Jadakiss showed up. Lil Cease showed up. DJ Mr. C was on the turntables. More than 100 people lined up outside a clothing store owned by a 24-year-old. That's the same age Biggie was when he was killed. 15 months later, she moved it across the street to a bigger space at 503 Atlantic Avenue, right by the Barclays Center, and reopened on March 8, 2019, with Lil Cease hosting again. Then came the pizzeria, Juicy Pizza, in Los Angeles, co-founded in 2021 with Tyra Myricks, Jam Master Jay's daughter.
In LA, instead of going on like an endless hunt, I just decided to create a pizza shop. So I made the concept, fleshed it out, and hit Tiana like, hey, we got to get this popping because I feel like it would be super dope.
2 women who lost their fathers to shootings running a restaurant together. And this is the pattern that runs through everything Tiana does with her inheritance. She doesn't sit on it. she converts it. Every dollar that came out of her father's catalog went into something with her name on the lease and her hands on the day-to-day. This will note into something nobody in Brooklyn saw coming. On March 9th, 2024, 27 years to the day since her father was killed, Tiana gutted her own store and reopened it as a museum. Same address, 503 Atlantic Avenue. The Notorious racks came out and the Biggie Experience went in. The first museum in the world dedicated to the Notorious B.I.G. She rebuilt his childhood bedroom from 226 St. James Place inside it. Eggshell blue walls, a Sanyo stereo playing Big Daddy Kane on cassette, Timberlands in the closet, an RCA television running the episode of Martin he cameoed in. Past that, a recreation of the bodega at Fulton and St. James where he did the 1989 freestyle people still pull up today. 8 exhibits total. Her reasoning was simple. Reading about him on paper is one thing. Standing in his room is another.
Okay, so talk to us about the Biggie Experience.
The Brooklyn fans, or all Biggie fans, are coming to Brooklyn and they want a place to see all the Biggie stuff.
Yeah.
So it sparked it from there, and I've just been putting it into fruition, and I finally was like, I need to do this now.
So the business she'd spent 11 years building, she handed over to him, and she opened it on the 9th of March. Hold on to that date. 11 months later, the woman who actually built this empire was gone. Valletta Wallace died on February 21st, 2025, at her home in Pennsylvania. 78 years old, in hospice, natural causes.
The mother of the late great rapper Notorious B.I.G. is being mourned tonight. Violetta Wallace died this morning at her home in Stroudsburg, Pennsylvania, where she was in hospice.
She'd spent her last year negotiating the biggest deal in the history of her son's catalog, and she didn't live to see it close. 4 weeks later, it closed. On March 20th, Primary Wave bought a 50% stake in the estate. The publishing, the masters, and rights to his name and likeness. Neither side disclosed the price. The Wall Street Journal valued the estate at over $200 million, and Billboard later reported the deal at $100 million. So half of what Valletta spent 23 years buying back went out the door for 9 figures, 1 month after she was buried. And that's when the family went to war over it. Valletta had run everything through a company called Notorious B.I.G. LLC, owned 50-50 between her own trust and Faith Evans. When she died, Evans became sole manager of the whole operation. On July 2nd, 2025, Wayne Barrow, the executor of Valletta's estate, sued her in Delaware, accusing her of withholding the trust's share of the money and refusing to hand over the paperwork showing what was even sold. Evans has never publicly responded to any of it. There's been no ruling. But buried in that filing is one sentence that answers the question everybody actually clicked on this video for. Barrow's own words. Miss Evans has distributed sale proceeds to Tiana, CJ, and presumably to herself. There it is. In a sworn court document written by the man fighting over this money, confirmation that Biggie's daughter got paid out of a $100 million deal. How much? The exact number sits in a sealed Delaware court file, and nobody outside that room has ever seen it. If you want to know where the Wallace fight is heading, look at who else is standing in that same Delaware courtroom. Prince died in April of 2016. No will, from a man who spent his entire career fighting record labels for ownership of his own masters. The IRS eventually valued his estate at $156 million. Primary Wave bought out 3 of his half-siblings. In 2022, the estate was split down the middle. Primary Wave's holding company on one side and LLC holding the family's half on the other. Everybody called it the end of the litigation. 2 years later, the family half was suing itself over control of that LLC.
A year after a legal battle over Prince's estate was finally settled, the heirs of the music legend are now suddenly back in court again. This time they're fighting against or among each other over allegations that certain family members are trying to wrongfully seize control.
That case is in Delaware Chancery Court in front of Chancellor Kathleen McCormick, the same judge now sitting on Biggie's. Same structure, same buyer, same courtroom. an artist who died without a will, a company that bought half, a family left holding the other half, and fighting over who runs it. Prince has been dead 10 years, and it still isn't finished. The Wallace case is 13 months old, but Tiana's been spinning it in public for 2 years. And once you line up what she's bought, what she's opened, and what she's got coming this fall, you can do the math yourself. Nobody has audited Tiana Wallace's finances, but you can assemble a picture of what she's holding because most of it is either public record or standing on a Brooklyn sidewalk. The house first, $1.5 million in Brooklyn in her name. And the reason we know that figure precisely is the one chapter of this story that doesn't fit the rest of it.
Tiana Wallace's boyfriend and baby father, right? He was recently arrested for running over a mother and a toddler.
On August 10th, 2022, her longtime boyfriend Tyshawn Baldwin, the father of her daughter, was stopped by police in Queens driving a Dodge Hellcat. His license came back suspended. Prosecutors say he took off and hit 3 pedestrians, including a mother and her 2-year-old. He surrendered 6 days later and was arraigned on 17 counts, including first-degree assault, facing up to 25 years. A judge set bond at $1 million. Tiana put her house up as collateral and got him out.
So what happened is the big story for people is that she ended up putting up her crib in Brooklyn for his bail, and she posted $1 million bail for this.
That's how the appraisal became public record. A bail bondsman accepted a Brooklyn home at $1.5 million, and the paperwork went into a Queens court file. It's the only time in 13 years that this woman's name has shown up in a courtroom for something other than her father. The Atlantic Avenue space is the other hard asset. She's held that lease since 2019 on one of the busiest retail corridors in the borough, through a pandemic that emptied out half the storefronts around her. Then the operating businesses. Notorious, 13 years old and still shipping. The museum, ticketed, open 2 years. And the pizzeria in Los Angeles with Tyra Myricks, Jam Master Jay's daughter, and about the only person alive who understands what Tiana's inheritance actually feels like.
I don't want to say yay or nay. I want to say that, the politically correct thing to say is that my daughter's taken care of by her father.
Celebrity net worth sites put her around $20 million. Take that loosely because those outlets don't publish methodology and no accountant has ever signed off on it. But stack up what we do know. A beneficiary stake in a catalog the Wall Street Journal valued at $200 million. A confirmed distribution from a $100 million sale, the property, the 4 businesses, and $20 million doesn't look aggressive. After what moved through that estate in 2025, it looks conservative. And here's the part that should tell you something. Scroll her Instagram and there's no yacht footage, no Birkin hauls, no mansion tour. For a woman holding that kind of paper in 2026, the feed is almost dull. Product drops, museum hours, her daughter. Everything she's taken out of her father's name has gone straight back into a lease, including the one she signs this fall. This fall, she opens a steakhouse in Manhattan called Big Poppa's.
Biggie's daughter is planning on opening a restaurant.
The place is supposed to be called Big Poppa's.
That's dope.
Caribbean-infused menu because Valletta was Jamaican, and that's the branch of the family the food comes from. Named for the record that put her father on pop radio in 1995. It's a serious escalation. Retail and a ticketed museum are inventory businesses. You buy stock, you sell stock. A full-service Manhattan restaurant is payroll, perishables, health inspections, liquor licensing, and a lease in the most expensive food market in America. Most of them close inside 5 years, and that's the ones opened by people who've run restaurants before. She did a private tasting in Midtown to build the menu, and what she was doing there was market research.
Yeah, she did I heard that she did a tasting to try out the menu to see what it is.
I love that.
I seen some pictures from it. They had like Biggie stamped into the burgers and all of that.
Into the buns.
That was cool, good marketing.
Lil Kim, Lil Cease, and Junior Maffa eating plates and telling her what to cut. Those aren't guests at a launch party. They're the only focus group on Earth that can tell her whether a dish tastes like her father's house. She scheduled that tasting for March 9th. Same date she opened the museum in 2024. Same date her father was shot dead in Los Angeles in 1997. Every time this woman opens something, she does it on the anniversary of his murder. The day her family lost him is the day she picks to start something. While Tiana was building a museum out of drywall and cassette tapes, the estate was building a second version of her father entirely. In 2022, they announced The Brook, a virtual recreation of 1990s Brooklyn, where fans could buy virtual real estate, attend concerts, and trade NFTs. The centerpiece was a hyper-realistic avatar of Biggie, built by a VFX company called Hyperreal from photographs and old footage of him. Valletta signed off on it. She called it a beautiful rendition of her son. That December, Meta put it on stage. Sky's the Limit, a VR concert experience, premiered inside Meta Horizon Worlds on the 16th. A digital Christopher Wallace performed his catalog for anybody with a headset, while Diddy, The Lox, Lotto, and Lil Cease performed alongside him. Touré narrated it. They billed it as a celebration of the 50th birthday he never reached. 25 years dead, and he played a show. Now hold that next to what the sale did. In March of 2025, Primary Wave bought publishing, masters, and 50% of his name, image, and likeness. The face, the voice, the avatar. And according to the Wall Street Journal, what they're considering with it includes a Biggie production on Broadway and further immersive experiences built around that digital version of him. Larry Mestel, who runs Primary Wave, said the plan going forward is to do less but larger. So there are two Biggies being built right now. One is a company with $100 million in the deal, engineering a version of him that can be put on any stage in the world forever without needing the man. The other is his daughter in a room on Atlantic Avenue, putting his actual Timberlands back in a closet, which is really the answer to the question this whole thing started with. The $200 million is the Wall Street Journal's valuation, and half of that sold for a reported $100 million in March of 2025. The money reaching Tiana is confirmed in writing, in a Delaware filing, by the man suing over that same pot. The size of her cut is the only piece nobody outside the courtroom can see. But none of that was Biggie's to leave. In 1997, he left about $10 million and half a publishing contract. Everything stacked on top of it, his mother built. 23 years buying her son's catalog back off the label, 1 percentage point at a time, finishing the job in 2020 and selling half of it in the last year of her life. Look at what that empire produced for the people still standing. A grandmother who spent her final months negotiating a deal she didn't live 4 more weeks to see close. A widow accused in court of holding money back. A trustee asking a judge to strip her of the company. A son who took the same name 3,000 miles west and put it on a cannabis company, which is its own kind of answer. And a daughter who has spent 13 years turning that name into Leases, a clothing line out of a college dorm while she was working the campus cafeteria, a storefront on Atlantic Avenue, a museum she made by handing that storefront over to her father, a pizzeria with another rap daughter, a steakhouse opening in Manhattan this fall. The insane part was never the money. It's that she never stopped building. Everybody else in this story is fighting over something that already exists. She's the only one making something new out of it. So what do you think? Did Tiana Wallace inherit an empire? Did she build the only part of it that's actually hers? Drop it in the comments. Check out our other videos and click on the boxes for more content. Till next time, peace.